felt like I was in death's door. Look at this.
Is this one going to drop it?
They eat that.
Is she about to drop? Boy, how vulnerable are they when they're giving birth?
Yeah.
And half of those kids get snatched up immediately by a cat.
Yeah.
Some cats or wild dogs or something come run over and steal your baby, and that's it. You carried that thing around inside of you for months. You love it more than anything in life. They'll protect it. Obviously, they have this insane connection with that baby, and then it gets snatched away by a cat.
It literally doesn't get its first bleat out.
Yeah.
It lifts its head, and then bong, it's
that's
gone.
One of the things that people have to be very aware about in North America.
What?
Bears. What bears are doing to deer and moose, the same thing. Half of the, if you really love deers and moose and elk and stuff like that, half of those animals, babies got eaten by bears.
Yeah.
They eat half of the babies that come out.
Half.
Yeah, it's a good thing in a good ecosystem.
To cull the herd.
Yeah, well, it's not even just to cull the herd. It's just that's what they're there for. It's a system. We look at it like it's this beautiful thing, because it is beautiful. You see these animals and the wild and nature, but what it is, it's a system. It's like a mathematical system. You have numbers, and the amount of predators is based on the amount of prey and the amount of babies they have and the amount of babies that survive. And animals that have less babies don't survive as well. Animals that are bigger fight off the wolves better. It's there's a whole system.
The whole system, and it trickles down right to the vegetation and the ecosystem. You know this, if they remove the wolves, then the elk and caribou herds expand, and they start eating all the growth on the riverbanks, causing erosion. The rivers flatten out. It just so you have to have those predators. So I'm glad they're eating half, and I'm gonna, if they're listening, eat 3/4.
If they weren't eating half, we would be overrun by deer and elk. You'd have a situation where you have in New Zealand, where they have to fly over the hills and just gun them down.
Moose in New Zealand?
In New Zealand's a wild place, literally. But
there's gnomes.
It's beautiful, so beautiful.
Elves.
But they got there in the 1700s or something like that, maybe the 1800s, and these European settlers, these European explorers, this place is so beautiful, but it doesn't have any things for us to kill. Why don't we bring in a bunch of wild animals from Europe that we like to kill? And so they turned it into a wild game safari park for hunting. Yeah, so there's all these animals like stags and all these different kinds of deer, all these animals that are not supposed to be in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. They're just overwhelming. If you buy elk, if you go to a restaurant, you buy elk tenderloin, most likely that elk is coming from New Zealand.
No.
Yeah.
There's elk in New Zealand?
A lot of elk in New Zealand. And they probably are allowed to consider stag elk too. I don't think that's a good question. I don't know. They're so similar. They're such a similar animal.
Yeah.
They probably taste exactly the same. The elk have a cool sound, but stags have a really cool. Stags sound like a lion. You ever heard a stag roar?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And that when they mate, the male elk do that whistle. That sounds like they're playing a piccolo.
Listen to this. What a weird noise.
Yeah. Look at his penis going up and down.
Oh, yeah. They jizz all over themselves.
Wow.
I've seen elk do it where they just piss all over themselves while they're screaming. They're screaming. Elks are even cooler. Give me an elk bugle. Elk bugle, I think, is the coolest sound in the world.
Oh, me?
Bro, if you didn't know, if you were in the dark and you were in camping and you heard an elk bugle and you didn't know what that was, you'd think, oh my God, there's monsters out here.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
Couldn't you imagine that being a monster?
Yeah. It's sort of like an instrument.
Imagine if it's dark out and you hear that. You're like, it's demons!
Yeah, that's kind of haunting and scary.
That's the greatest animal.
And then they go into the big cats go into Flehmen. You know this?
Flehmen?
I ran into problems with girlfriends because of this. It's like when the female lions or the leopards, they get ripe, you know what I mean? Ready to party.
Let it go.
The lions and the cheetahs and they do this thing where they smell the female scent and they do this thing where they curl their lip up.
Yeah.
And it's like a sexual thing. And that
Flehmen response takes place when one lion of either sex sniffs or smells the urine of another. Chemicals and hormones contained in the urine elicit the Flehmen response. Usually after smelling the urine patch on the ground or vegetation, the cat is doing the smelling will lift his or her head and hold their lips back in a strong grimace. Let me see it.
And I got
that's just like him. Look,
I guess.
Look at that face.
That urine.
Imagine looking at that right before it closes down on your neck and go, "Oh yeah, I'm not getting out of this. There's no jiu-jitsu move." There's no poking in the eye. That's a wrap. It's a wrap. Look at that mouth. That is a wrap. A rapidy wrap.
I had a moment when I was on safari in Africa where it's the only time in my life I started shaking. We were on a private Land Rover. We came up on 2 male lions that had just made a kill. We were literally probably, I'd say, 25 feet from them. And one of them got up, and we're in the open Land Rover, right? With no protection, no windows.
That is such bullshit.
So we got the guy driving from our camp, and this thing, one of them got up, walked halfway to us, and just did that burning stare with its golden eyes.
Oh my God.
And I was holding my hand, because it was one of the few times in my life I felt like I was in death's door. Like that lion could have been on me in 2 seconds, and it was terrifying but exhilarating at the same time.
How do they know that the lions won't jump into the cab and pull people out?
They get acclimated to these kind of clunky things, and look, believe me, I know nature's unpredictable.
How much trust do you have to have?
Well, I said to our driver, he was parked in front of a stump. I said to him, I said, dude, I know you do this every day. Get away from the stump. We need to have an exit strategy.
Yeah.
And so he goes, oh, we'll be fine. I said, no, move from the stump, because nature, you don't know when nature's gonna do that.
Did you know that it was gonna be an open air thing?
Yeah.
And you were cool with that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. But I didn't know we were gonna come up on 2 male lions that were in the middle of eating a wildebeest and be the only ones there and like 25 feet away, and one of them was going to shorten the distance by half.
Was this before or after the lady from Game of Thrones, who was the video editor? She's one of the video editors of Game of Thrones. She got pulled out of a car by a lion.
She did?
Yeah, she got
Well,
killed.
there you go. There's your answer. Yeah, it can happen.
I think it was a different situation, though. I don't think they were acclimated to the open air ones, because in this one, it was cars, and she rolled her window down to reach out to take a picture, and the cat just snatched her.
Oh, idiot.
It's like a toy. I mean, you're basically rolling a piece of yarn. If a cat sees a thing that he couldn't get, but now he can get it, their instinct is just to get it.
Yeah.
Like, even if they never would do that if the windows were rolled down from the beginning, the moment they see you peeking out, like, you're basically like dangling